So today we're testing the Dragon Hunter Crossbow against the Blowpipe and the Twisted Bow at a few different dragons. I did make a video just a few days ago testing it against like the colored dragons, blue, green, red, black. This video we're going to be testing it against some of the bosses, Vorkath, King Black Dragon, Olm, and Wyverns. So we're testing the DPS. I'll just say what that is really quickly. So DPS stands for damage per second. Which basically just means the average damage for every second that you're going to be doing on the monster. So higher is better. Also, in my previous video, I got some people asking how I calculated the DPS, like how many kills I did, how much damage I did to calculate it. But I'm using a formula Jagex have given us. I think they've given us, or at least the players have worked out pretty much the exact formula for how damage is calculated, defense, attack, and how high you can hit, all that kind of stuff. So I was using a public calculator that is very, very accurate. Pretty sure it's like the consensus opinion of the higher levels that it is perfectly right on. And I will link that down in the description if you want to go use it. It's a spreadsheet. You can save a copy to your own, I think it's on like Google Spreadsheets or something like that. So you can save your own copy. And once you save your own copy, you can edit it. If you don't save your own copy, then you can't edit it. It's not mine, it's someone else's, so I can't guarantee that it is safe, but I've been using it and I'm pretty sure it's safe. So it's by some guy named Bitter Coke J. I probably mispronounced that horribly, but whatever. So for this video, we'll start off with KBD. KBD, you have to go through the wilderness to get to it, and you can get killed, so you don't want to bring a bunch of good stuff. So I just picked 4 really good items to bring with me, and then the rest was just kind of like welfare stuff. So I wore Black D'hide, Gothic Coif, an Accumulator, Dragon Hunter Crossbow, Twisted Buckler, Anguish Amulet, Pegasian Boots, and Barrow's Gloves. In the clip, I'm actually wearing snake skin boots and an archer ring eye, but I took out the archer ring and put in Pegasians for the calculations. Also, I should have swapped the buckler for a prayer book and then brought the archering eye, but I didn't do that. So onto the actual DPS that I calculated. So with the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, I got 6.73 DPS. For the Blowpipe and Twisted Bow, since I didn't have to bring the Twisted Buckler, I brought an archer ring instead. So for Blowpipe with Dragon Darts, I got 6.57 DPS, Addy Darts 5.96, Twisted Bow 8.4. So Twisted Bow wins out by a pretty big margin here, although the Dragon Hunter Crossbow is the next best. So if you don't have enough money for a Twisted Bow, Dragon Hunter Crossbow is the best option. It would be cheaper to use than the Blowpipe and better DPS. And there's another big consideration here. If you're using a two-handed weapon such as a Twisted Bow or a Blowpipe, you cannot use an anti-dragon shield. With Protect from Magic and an anti-fire potion, you can protect from Fire Breath completely, although he does have other attacks he uses which actually do a fair amount of damage. So if you use an anti-fire shield, you can actually stand in his melee range and protect from melee. Then he'll melee you quite a bit, which will actually reduce the total damage that he does to you by quite a bit, which means longer trips, which in turn helps the kills per hour. So in actuality, if I was camping this, I'd probably swap out the Twisted Buckler for an anti-dragon shield, bring an archer's ring, stand in its melee distance, and protect from melee, and I'd actually say that might be better than the Twisted Bow. Also, just for some context, here's the Rune Tbow and Arma Tbow DPS. It's so much lower than the other 3 that's why I haven't really included it in my last video, and why I'm probably not going to mention it anymore in this video. They're so far below, it's just not really worth mentioning. So for all the next monsters, here's the setups that I use. Elite Range Void with all the best stuff in the other slot, Dragon Diamond Bolts, and then basically the same setup but with Armadillo in the set of Void, or in the place of Void, and Barrel Gloves. And then with Twisted Bow and Blowpipe, the same thing except swapping out the weapon and shield for the other weapon. So first up is Wyverns. I haven't killed too many Wyverns, so I didn't realize that anti-fire potions didn't work here. Protect from Magic lowers their fire damage down a little bit, and then the Elemental Shield or Mind Shield or one of the Dragon Fire Shields lowers it. So we'll start off with regular Wyverns. As far as the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, Void is better. The Blowpipe and Twisted Bow Armadillo is better. But the Dragon Hunter Crossbow actually is very close to the same DPS as the Blowpipe with Dragon Darts in Armadillo, and it's so much cheaper to use the Dragon Hunter Crossbow over Dragon Darts and the Blowpipe, so it's a pretty clear win here for the Dragon Hunter Crossbow. And with the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, you can actually use an anti-dragon shield or an elemental shield which will reduce the damage by a lot, allow longer trips. So next up is 3 of the Wyverns on Zaya. So the long-tailed Wyvern, the spitting Wyvern, and the taloned Wyvern. Their DPSs were exactly the same for each weapon across all 3 of them, besides the Twisted Bow. The Twisted Bow is a bit better. The Twisted Bow had a little over 6 DPS on the spitting Wyvern because the spitting Wyvern has higher magic level. But other than that one little thing, the DPS is the same across all 3. So the blowpipe with dragon darts wins out by a fair amount on these, but it costs so much. Once again, the Dragon Hunter crossbow is going to be the best option if you're going for money. Twisted Bow is quite a bit below both of them. Next up, Ancient Wyverns. They're on Zaya as well. So with the Dragon Hunter crossbow, Void is better. With blowpipe and Twisted Bow, Armadillo is better. Dragon Hunter crossbow has the highest DPS out of all of them. The blowpipe with dragon darts coming in pretty close to it, but because of being a lot cheaper to use and being able to use a anti-dragon shield or elemental shield or wyvern visage, the range one, whatever, the Dragon Hunter crossbow is pretty easily the winner here. So for Vorkath, I used the same setup, except I swapped out the Anguish amulet for a Salve Ami EI, which gives you a bonus against undead monsters, and Vorkath counts as an undead monster. I also used, I put in Ruby Dragon Bolt's DPS. There's one thing I'm unsure with the Ruby Dragon Bolts, with the DPS calculator. I'm not sure if the DPS it gives you is based on if you were to kill the entire monster with ruby bolts, because the spec of ruby bolts is it does 20% of the monster's health, capped at 100 damage. So what you'd want to do with Vorkath is you'd want to use them until the spec is like around 90. Then you'd want to swap over to diamond bolts, so you wouldn't want to use them for the entire kill. So I don't know if this DPS with the ruby bolts is based on using them for the entire kill, or if it assumes that you swap to different bolts once the spec starts to get a little bit lower. Also, this DPS is not counting in any Dragon Warhammer specs or Bandos Godsword specs, which would lower the defense and might change some of the DPS a little bit. So Void is better for all 3 weapons. Ruby Bolts have the highest DPS out of anything. The Blowpipe with Dragon Darts coming in next, and the Diamond Dragon Bolts coming in at number 3. I'd say because of the Ruby Bolts being higher DPS than the Dragon Darts, and the Diamond Dragon Bolts not being too much lower than the Dragon Darts with the Blowpipe, I would say that it's probably pretty safe to assume that using the Dragon Hunter crossbow would get you more money per hour than using the Blowpipe and Dragon Darts. The Blowpipe and Dragon Darts might get you a few more kills per hour, but the extra cost of Dragon Darts and skills would make it so you're not making more money. So I don't have any video clips of Ulm, but here is the stats. Dragon Hunter crossbow, Void is better than Armadillo. Blowpipe and Twisted Bow, Armadillo is better than Void. Dragon Hunter crossbow is a fair amount better than Blowpipe, but the Twisted Bow still is the best. So I don't know if you would want to bring an entire extra item, because Dragon Hunter crossbow isn't going to be that useful for the rest of the raid. I don't think there's any other dragons in there. So you still want a Twisted Bow and a Blowpipe for the other rooms. I'm not a pro raider, and when I do raids, I solo them, so I can't really comment too much on if it would be worth it to bring the Dragon Hunter crossbow or not. I wouldn't bring it. If you have the Twisted Bow, I would assume that it's definitely not worth it to bring it. If you only have a Blowpipe, it might be worth it to bring it. And that is it today, so thank you for watching. See you next video.